assistant professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Sciences. My interests are in human dimensions of the environment, and particularly conservation psychology. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to provide just a brief overview of a project that just recently launched in January. We're sort of forward-looking, and we'll be focusing on understanding angler behaviors that contribute to the spread of aquatic invasive species. So it's great to have this opportunity to present a sort of complementary perspective to many of the ideas that have been talked about and discussed thus far in the meeting. To acknowledge my co-authors and collaborators on this project, I'm working with Rich Stedman at Cornell University, who is an environmental social psychologist, Corey Susky, who's a fisheries ecologist, and also Elizabeth Golebi, who's a graduate student in my group, who does work at the nexus of the social and natural sciences. The research question that's driving this project is one of integration. We know from past work that there are individual psychological processes that shape people's behaviors that relate to natural resource management challenges, such as the spread of aquatic invasives. And we also know that there are contextual level variables, policy pressures, management actions that also play a role in shaping people's decisions and behaviors. And so what we're trying to do with this project is bridge these different bodies of work to understand not only these individual psychological drivers of behavior, but also institutional factors and people's preferences for policies that oversee and manage the spread of aquatic invasives across the Great Lakes Basin. We have three objectives that are guiding this study. First, we'll be quantifying the relationships among these different psychological drivers of behavior. We'll be asking questions about factors such as environmental values, attitudes, knowledge of aquatic invasives to anticipate and engage reported behaviors among recreational anglers. We'll also be looking at the relationships among different preferences for policy outcomes, and so we'll be testing the relative importance of competing attributes that shape people's responses to policies or policy mixes that address the spread of aquatic invasives. And finally, we'll be running comparisons to assess not only these psychological drivers of behavior, but also institutional factors between nearshore and offshore environments. Our research team values mixed methods approaches, and so for the first stage of this work, we're taking an in-depth approach to inductively understand some of the key priorities among managers and also stakeholders. We're in the process of conducting informal and semi-structured interviews with anglers, and along those lines, we are hoping to collect contact information from you all in case you'd be interested to speak with us further about this research and also share your ideas, your needs, your interests, etc. And Elizabeth has a few contact sheets that she's going to distribute. If you could do that. If you'd be willing to share your contact information with us, then either Elizabeth or I would follow up to share more information on this project that's just beginning, and also ask if you'd be willing to have a conversation with us and participate in an interview. We'll be holding a focus group at the Council of Lake Committees meeting, and again, this is to engage in this in a dialogue and an exchange to better understand management priorities and to tailor our research questions and experimental design to different study contexts. We'll also be holding workshops to engage with stakeholder groups and better understand those needs and preferences of relevant groups. After forming and refining our research approach in the initial year of the project, we'll also be collecting quantitative data through a regional survey that will be administered to 5,000 anglers across the Great Lakes Basin, particularly in 5 states that surround both Lake Michigan and Lake Ontario. And as part of this, we'll be using a few different techniques First, we'll rely on structural equation modeling to better understand the relationships among psychological processes that shape decisions. And this is a technique that you can use to better understand the relationships among multiple dependent variables. So we'll be looking at the flow of decisions that people make that contribute to their behaviors that contribute to the spread of aquatic invasives. We'll also be building a structural equation model. We will rely on structural equation modeling and stated choice modeling, which is a technique that allows you to determine the relative importance of competing attributes or different factors that are shaping people's decisions. And then we'll be comparing both these psychological drivers and institutional factors across different environments. Our research team certainly values the importance of informing management decisions and working closely with stakeholder groups, and so I just wanted to highlight a few research outcomes, including a decision support tool. From the information that we collect from stakeholders and managers, we'll be forming a decision support tree that identifies different kinds of message frames that would be most effective to communicate with relevant stakeholder groups that can be geographically specified as well. We'll be reporting results, certainly through multiple outlets, and these results will not only build on the knowledge gained from understanding psychological processes, but also gauging people's preferences and trade-offs for different kinds of policy options. We'll be looking at people's preferences for management actions, such as restrictions on bait use, so spatial regulations for bait across these different states, and also regulations at boat ramps and on shoreline for the sake of healthy ecosystems. And we'll be measuring these ecosystems through indicators such as rehabilitation of lake trout and decreases in the number of aquatic invasives. So that's a way to say that we're going to understand the relative perceived importance of these different drivers of behavior and preferences for policy outcomes. And this, of course, will be communicated through a knowledge exchange with stakeholders and continued engagement with the lake committees and feedback from you all. And so we just wanted to welcome your input and encourage you to speak with us over lunch or for the rest of the meeting. If you'd be keen to share your observations, we'd certainly welcome those conversations. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.